Hello everyone. Welcome back. Today, we are opening a file that is particularly disturbing because it shatters the image of the perfect American family in the most brutal way imaginable. We are going to Columbia, Illinois, a quiet, safe suburb where people leave their doors unlocked and trust their neighbors. But on May 5, 2009, that sense of safety was destroyed forever. This is the story of Chris Coleman, a man who was supposed to protect people for a living, but ended up becoming the monster he was supposed to guard against. On the surface, the Colemans had it all. Chris was the head of security for Joyce Meyer, a world-famous televangelist. It was a high-paying, high-status job. He traveled the world protecting a religious icon. His wife, Sherry Coleman, was a beautiful, loving mother to their two young sons, 11-year-old Garrett and 9-year-old Gavin. They lived in a nice house, drove nice cars. They were living the dream. But behind closed doors, the dream was rotting away. The nightmare began publicly on the morning of May 5, 2009. Chris Coleman left the house early to go to the gym. A little while later, he called his house to check on his family, but no one answered. He then called a detective friend of his, sounding panicked, asking him to go check on the house. He said he was worried because he had been receiving threatening emails. When police arrived at the Coleman residence, they walked into a scene from a horror movie. In the bedrooms, they found Sherry, Garrett, and Gavin. All three had been strangled to death in their beds with a wire ligature. But it wasn't just the murders that shocked the officers. It was what was written on the walls. Spray painted in red across the walls of the house were terrifying messages. "I am always watching. You have paid. Punished." It looked like the work of a deranged stalker. Someone who had a vendetta against Chris or his employer, Joyce Meyer. At first glance, it seemed to corroborate Chris's story about the threats. He claimed that anonymous enemies of the ministry had been targeting him. But here is where the story takes a dark turn. Police are trained to look past the theatrics, and this crime scene felt staged. As investigators dug deeper, the grieving husband act started to crumble. They looked into those threatening emails Chris claimed to have received. And guess what? Digital forensics is a beautiful thing. They traced the emails back to Chris Coleman's own laptop. He had been sending threats to himself and his own wife to set up an alibi. Then came the motive. Why would a man annihilate his entire family? The answer, as it often is, was a mix of lust and greed. Chris was having an affair with a woman named Tara Lentz. She was actually a friend of Sherry's from high school. They had planned a new life together. But Chris had a problem. He worked for a Christian ministry. If he got a divorce, he risked losing his high-paying job. In his twisted, narcissistic mind, he calculated that being a widower would garner sympathy and job security, while being a divorce would mean disgrace and financial ruin. So he chose murder. The evidence against him became overwhelming. Police found a receipt showing that Chris had purchased the exact same brand and color of red spray paint found on the walls. His timeline at the gym didn't match the time of death determined by the medical examiners. The rigor mortis on the bodies told a story that contradicted his alibi. This case really gets under my skin because of the sheer betrayal involved. Think about it. Sherry and those two little boys went to sleep thinking they were safe. The person who killed them was the one person in the world whose sole duty was to protect them. Chris Coleman didn't just kill them. He strangled them. That is a personal, intimate way to kill. He looked into their eyes as he took their lives, and then he went to the gym. During the trial in 2011, the prosecution painted a picture of a cold, calculating sociopath. A man who sprayed graffiti on his own walls to frame a phantom enemy. Also, he could be with his mistress and keep his paycheck. The jury didn't buy his story for a second. It took them very little time to return a verdict. Guilty on all counts. Chris Coleman was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. He sits there today, still claiming his innocence, still playing the victim. But the writing was literally on the wall, and for once, the writing told the truth about who the real danger was. Sherry, Garrett, and Gavin deserved a protector. Instead, they lived with a predator. It's a tragic reminder that sometimes the evil isn't lurking in the shadows outside. It's sleeping right next to you. Thank you for listening to their story. Stay safe, trust your gut, and I'll see you in the next case.